Good evening, our dear viewers and listeners. You are live on Kanele 97.7 FM. We welcome you to yet another edition of Nchezgo program, which comes to you right here on 97.7 FM. It is a program that has hosted a number of big figures and different people who have sat here and shared their experiences and how this country is being governed. I'm your presenter, Banda Edward. On camera, for those of you who are watching us on our Facebook page, Stephen Koma is behind the camera, and my producer is John Zayawan Mseteka. It's yet another one for today. This night, we are hosting our guest, who we coincided. I don't know if I can call it coincidence. We hosted him on 1st November last year. He's back on Kanele 97.7 FM to discuss with you governance issues concerning Zambia. My guest is Mr. Muhabi Lungu, the spokesperson for the newly formed Zambia We Want political party. He's here. We are going to discuss. Our topic is, what Zambia do we want after 60 years of independence? He has joined me in the studio to discuss that particular topic. Mr. Lungu, good evening and welcome to Nchezgo program once again.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. Thank you very much for the invitation. 1 year after we last spoke. Yes. Very happy to be here now.
You were sitting on Nchezgo on 1st November last year.
Yes. Can you imagine?
So you are also here on this
same day. Yes. No. Maybe there is. They say there's nothing for coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. It must have some meaning. Yes. So we'll see.
Mr. Lungu, we are going to look at 60 years of Zambia's independence. We just celebrated 60 years last week. Zambia has attained 60 years from the time it got independence from the colonial government. And you are one of the people who has seen the Zambian governance system grow up to the level where we are, because you've served in government, in politics for more than 30 years now. How would you describe Zambia's governance at 60 years?
At 60 years, well, that is a very good question, Banda. And it is one that requires that we all reflect on it. In other forums, I have always stated that we should have done this reflection at 50, okay? But one of the problems at 50 is that, if you recall, in 2014 we had, our president was not well. He was, and eventually he passed on, I think some 4 days after independence. And so then the country was taken up in the mourning period and having this event, which meant that we had a second president in our country die while in office. So I think that confused us. But regardless of that, I think it's important, 60 years as you put it, that we do reflect. And it should not only be on the day we reached 60. I think it should be all of this year, because we are 60. So it should serve as a basis in which we begin to look at our history and say, what things did we do right and what things did we do wrong. So to get straight to your question, let me just give you a few statistics which I think might help us to fairly evaluate where we are at 60. The first one is our ranking in terms of the Human Development Index, which is the United Nations ranking of where countries are if they look at a number of sectors, in education, in health, in environment, and all the things that go for a good standard of living for a country. Out of 162 countries, we are ranked as a country to be 137. Out of 162 countries.
Out of 162.
Out of 162. So out of 162 countries, when they say, where do you place in terms of Human Development Index, in terms of how good things are, Zambia is ranked near the bottom at 137. Now, clearly, that is too low a ranking for a country which has an abundance of natural resources. We've got plenty of land, and fertile land. We've got plenty of water, It is said that we have got 40% of the region's water. We have plenty of educated people. We have plenty of minerals. We have so much natural resources. Why should a country, and we have peace. We've never had a civil war. We've never had war apart from prosecuting the liberation struggle. But regardless of all those good things, why are we at 137 ranking? That is a mark.
Yeah.
Let me go to the next one. I'll just give three so that we can look at this as fair. As you say, we've been independent for 60 years. If you look at the number of years that we have registered positive economic growth, growth which is above 1, 2, 3, maybe even 5%. Of the 60 years, Zambia has only maybe registered a growth of 27 of those years out of 60 years. Now, if you calculate that as a percentage of 60, you will find that it is below 50%, maybe it's around 40%. Now, if a student passes by 40%, what do you say that student has done? That student has failed. Okay? So that is the second just figure I wanted to look. So you've got the ranking, then you've got the number of economic growth rates. The rest of those growth rates have been negative, where the economy, instead of expanding, the economy is shrinking. Okay, now, would anyone say that that is a good thing? No, you would not say that that is a good thing. The third one, which is again general, because I'm giving general. We are now a population of 20 million people in this country. And out of those 20 million people, you have about 10 million people who are eligible to work. Okay? And a significant number of those people who are eligible to work are young people, below the age of 30. Out of those that are eligible to work, maybe we say 8 million, the total employment in this country, of those who are in formal sector employment, is maybe 1 million. So 7 million people are either in the informal sector or unemployed. They've got nothing to do. So if you look at just those three, and I can go on to list 10 issues which would give us an indication. If you look at those three issues, it gives you a very frightening picture of where we are 60 years after we demanded for self-governance, and we said that we will be able to govern ourselves properly and bring about prosperity for our people. Clearly we haven't. Okay? Now, the question is, why have we been able not to deliver that prosperity? From those who do studies, clearly the number one reason is that our governance systems have not been properly created, and even in places where they are well established, the implementation of how we govern ourselves has been very poor. So the number one issue really is we have not been able to govern ourselves very well. Now, to be fair, for me, I tend to remove Dr. Kaunda and the early years of it for two reasons. One, I think that they were the beginners. They were able to do what they could. And not only that, but for a significant period of time that they were in government, we were also prosecuting a liberation struggle. Zimbabwe, South Africa, etc., etc. So there were issues which maybe made it a little bit more difficult for us to govern, although they did very well. You know, in the first years of independence, I think that we did have an economy which was, in fact, a significant portion of that growth which I talked about 27 was actually under the one party state. So for their level of education, they did very well. But after 1990, we have progressively become worse in terms of governance.
So you think problems started after the 1990, after the unit government left office, coming down. Where did this country go wrong for us to be found in this situation we are in now?
Yeah, I think that one of the places is that when we recognize that there is a problem with certain things in our country, we the politicians tend to promise that we'll fix it. But then when we have been given the opportunity to fix it and we're in government, we do the exact opposite of the things that we said we are going to do. Okay? So, I don't want to create the impression that the UNIP administration was perfect. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that they were operating under different systems and a different environment at that point, and then for the issues which they had said, they had delivered. They got independence, they created Zambianization, they created industry, and many Zambian people became middle class. So I think there were some achievements there, clearly. But I think that one of the biggest drawbacks of UNIP was that all of us recognized that the system of the one-party state was not good, and that we needed a constitution which was more inclusive and which diffused power over all the three arms of government, where you didn't have a strong person in the executive. Okay, that is what we all agreed. And as a people in 1990, we recognized that, and we said, okay, we need to make a change. So when we made the change, in fact, the promise of the MMD was that once we get into power, after we adjusted the constitution, the one-party constitution in 1991, that the constitution which we would place in power would be a constitution of a multi-party system. And all of those promises that were made by those of us who were part of the MMD, we found that once we got into power, we reneged on that promise. There was no constitutional reform to make our constitution a little bit more inclusive, to make our constitution diffused power so that you've got more power going to the legislature and to the judiciary, and there was independence of it, and take power from the presidency. Instead, what happened is that Chilua, the first president in a multi-party system, started to consolidate power within the executive. And largely, that power in the executive has become almost obsolete in this country, so that the executive branch of government is very strong. They can decide who to arrest if they don't like you. You can spend 2 weeks in jail, like Thomas Ziambo spent, without bail, because apparently Thomas Ziambo annoyed people at State House. You can stay 2 weeks there, like the Secretary General of the PF did, without bail, simply because someone says, okay, arrest him. It's not supposed to be like that. You can suspend 3 judges on a complaint made from a member of the ruling party, and just within the last 7 years, there have been more judges, within the last 3 years rather, there have been more judges suspended by this administration than all of the other 6 administrations. So you can see that over time, the power of the presidency has become so consolidated that the presidency now is like a monarchy.
Is that what made you to go back to working with Dr. Kaunda? Because you led the movement,
Yeah.
you were
I was part of it.
part of the movement that removed the one-party state in 1991.
Yes.
And in 1996, you worked with Dr. Kaunda.
Yes, it was one of the reasons.
What made you go back and
Because we as the MMD had promised that once we get into government, we would have a review of the constitution and put in place a constitution which created a governance structure which would enable us to deliver the economic promise. Okay? But once the MMD got into power, they said there was going to be no constitutional review. In fact, they made it even stronger to try and consolidate powers, as I said, under the presidency. And so I said to myself, this is not what we said as a people. We said we were going to make this thing freer. So we've only changed from one-party state into a multi-party state by name, not by constitution. Only one provision, that was Article 4, which changed. But all the other powers basically remain the same as though we were in a one-party state. So the idea for me, when I joined now to work for Dr. Kaunda, who I was fighting against, was to be able to see whether at that point where UNIP was the main opposition party in parliament, that we could perhaps remind the MMD that the undertakings they had said would be to actually make and improve upon the constitution so that our democratic system can begin to operate more like a multi-party democracy rather than a one-party state. So that is what we were trying. And in the end, it actually failed, because if you remember, Dr. Kaunda was banned, the constitution was made stronger to consolidate the power of the presidency at the expense of the other two of government. Worse, that 5 years later, there was an attempt by now the president of MMD to try and get a third term. So we wanted to even change the fact that we didn't want Wamyaya, and we wanted to go back to Wamyaya. So that is the reason why I joined the other side. Okay? Yeah.
The Patriotic Front oversaw the Golden Jubilee of this country, 50 years, in 2014.
That's right.
And the UPND has presided over the 60 years of Zambia's independence.
Yeah.
How do you rate these two administrations? The Patriotic Front, where it left, the UPND, where it got it, up to it, where the country is now.
Yeah, again,
economically, rule of law, and how the institutions of governance are being treated.
Yes, again, I think that if we stay for a moment with the theme of good governance, you can see that progressively there has been a deterioration. So, for PF, I think that they say that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. For the PF, the fact that in 2021 they lost so badly is proof of the eating of the pudding, because the Zambian people at that point had categorically stated that there were certain things which the PF were doing which they didn't want. So they didn't want cadres having more powers than the police. They didn't want interference of the executive in the judicial process. They didn't want interference of the executive by President Lungu in the legislative process, and many other issues. And they also felt that their standard of living from 2011, to 2021 had deteriorated so much. When, if you recall, in 2011 when the MMD lost power under Rupiah Banda, the exchange rate was 4.6 to $1. By the time we were getting to 2021, it was about 16-17 to $1. And in 2011, again, if you recall, Zambia had become a lower middle income country. We had actually grown. These human development index, we had actually climbed the ladder, and we had now been declared by the international community that now we are not a low income country, we are now a middle income country. By the time we get to 2021, we drop back into being a low income country. And so there are many other issues which I can explain. So the people of Zambia said, no, this is not good. We don't like party cadres showing how much money they have. Therefore, we are going to vote you out. We don't like the tribalism that we have seen, because even within the PF, if you look at cabinet ministers, if you look at parastatal sector and so on, you will find that the majority of people in there were either Bemba-speaking people or Easterners. There were very few little people from the other areas. So people were saying you've even destroyed the One Zambia, One Nation motto, although that is what you are saying. So that's 2021 now. We are going to remove you and put this group of people so that they can correct the situation, so that we can go back maybe to where we were a little bit earlier, where it looked like things were okay. 3 years later, in the UPND administration, the dollar now has moved from 17.18 to 27. Yesterday is what at 27. The debt that the PF had acquired has just been restructured, but it's still there. In addition to that, we have now borrowed an additional 6 billion. The standard of living is far worse than it was 3 years ago. As I said, judges are being fired. People are being detained in Interim without even going to the court. The issue of ethnicity and polarization, where it was Eastern and Northerners with maybe 20% other group, it is now Southerners predominantly and maybe even 10% of the other group. So it has flipped and even become worse. So this government, instead of improving on the issues which the people punish the PF for, have in fact made things worse. And that is not something that has come out of my mouth, Banda. It is indicators which are quite clear by even independent agencies are even saying so, that this is what has transpired. So again, it means that governance continues to deteriorate. Even worse, in my conclusion on this matter, the president that we have now appears to be so much larger than all the other branches of government. That
What do you mean when you say he appears to be so much larger?
yes, there is no balance.
Okay.
Yeah, between the executive and the judiciary, there is no balance or sharing of power between these with the legislature. It looks like all decisions to do with creating direction within the judiciary and the legislature are coming from the executive. So here you have a situation, for example, where a political party has got internal problem of its own, as we had discussed a year ago, and then the government interferes and makes somebody the leader of the opposition. It's a decision which is supposed to be made by the political party. But clearly you can see that there is a degree of interference from the executive to the legislature to ensure that their wishes are being done. Here is an opposition political party called the MMD, which is supposed to be an opposition political party operating on its own. There was a signing of an MOU the other day, and its president, who has not been re-elected according to the rules and regulations of the MMD, is now in his 13th year, yet the president welcomes him, and we understand has been put on a payroll as a former head of state when he's a politician. Yet the former head of the political party, Mr. Lungu, because he's in politics, his benefits have been withdrawn. But it's okay for a president who is on your side, has outstripped his mandate, and you still have put him on a payroll. At least that is what we have been told.
How sure are you that Dr. Neves Mumba has been put on the payroll?
I am not sure, but the communication that has gone out to the public is that all of the former vice presidents have been put on the payroll. I know that one of the groups that has been fighting to save MMD, Honorable Chilima's group, wrote to the Secretary to the Cabinet requesting for information as to whether this is true or not. And in my understanding, there was never any response. Now, if it is not true, then we should be told. And this matter has been brought into the public by so many other people. And the government seems to be unwilling to say whether this is true or not. Now, so we are led, and we have no other choice but to conclude that it must be true. Okay, that this is the case. So all of these issues, in my view, show that there is interference from the executive in all three arms of government, and that the president has become larger than all of the institutions of life. You remember that a democratic system is supposed to be a republic. And a republic means that the person who is leader is elected leader and is bound by the rules and regulations of that constitutional order. Not that he's a monarchy. And the way our president currently behaves is that as if he is a monarch. And that has also infected other political parties. So the governance systems in our country are rotten, they are corrosive, and they are being abused by we, the political players, who promise to make things better, but then when we get into office, we actually make things worse. And that is one of the reasons where we are, 137 out of 162 countries.
A year ago, when you appeared on this same platform, you described the happenings in the former ruling party, Patriotic Front,
yes,
as nonsensical.
Yeah,
because you accused of the current government of interfering in their internal affairs.
Yes,
and now we are seeing there are those efforts trying to change the leadership again from the Mao Sampa to the other person.
Christopher Chavinga, I think it's Mr. Chavinga.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chavinga, yes. I don't know whether his name is Christopher, maybe I'm confusing with his father. But Mr. Chavinga, yes, I am.
Yeah. So this has continued.
Yeah.
Where does this put our rule of law in this country?
No. As I said, we need to change the constitution. Clearly, the constitution, the way it is operating now, has got some serious difficulties. And those of us who are in other political organizations like we in Zambia have clearly stated in our manifesto that we think that the constitution needs to be overhauled. But overhauled within the ambit of what the people of Zambia have been asking for in all of these constitutional review commissions. I think there are about 6 of them. So that not that we go back to the beginning. that we need to reform the constitution in which there is a proper balance and sharing of power between the various arms of government to reduce the power of the presidency so that you don't have a monarchy or a messiah who is in charge. And this thing of governance at the higher level has also affected governance at the political level. So, for example, the example you are giving about the PF. Here is a situation where the PF currently, as we stand, unfortunately, as a main opposition political party, has got 3 presidents. You have President Lungu, you've got Mao Sampa, and you've got Chawinga. All of them claiming within their support base that they are the president. Now, obviously, I have to be clear, but it's not clear because of the way the internal structures of the PF is. Here is a situation which I said, where in the MMD, and both of these political parties I'm mentioning are parties which were in government before. Okay? Here is a situation where you have in the MMD a situation where you have the president of the party who is only supposed to be there for a maximum of 10 years. He's in his 13th year now because he was elected in 2012. Okay? This is 2024. He was elected in May 25, 2012. This is his 13th year, and he has the audacity to go sign an MOU and not go to his people, to the Congress, which gives him that empowering. Clearly, that even within the MMD, it looks like the messianic figure or the monarchy has taken over the party. You have a situation where UNIP was in power for 27 years. There are Rangos. There are, I think, 3 presidents. There's the president, Keno Muyoba at the registrar. There is Trevor Mwamba, and there was Kaila also claiming. So here are 3 former ruling parties, all who seems to be having problems within institutionalization of their political party. Okay? Now, you have to ask, what is wrong with this? What is wrong with this? Because every political party that is supposed to be operating within the armpit of the democratic system in a multi-party system is supposed to have very clear rules and regulations of how you elect a president, when a president will leave, when another congress will be held or a convention will be held, and in all the main 3 former political parties there is chaos. Now, this, in my view, it's like an infection which has started at the national level. And basically what we as Zambian politicians are saying, if we don't have rules and regulations that operate clearly and transparently at the national level, even at the level of the political party, we can do what we want. Yeah, because there is almost no rules and regulation. So that is really a really big problem in terms of governance. Now, if it is happening at the national level, it's happening at the unit of a political party, can you say that your multi-party system will have the capacity to deliver on the economic promise of the people? It cannot happen. So there is something wrong with our system. There is something fundamentally wrong with the system. And all of us must be concerned. We must be able to say, how do we fix this? Because it doesn't only affect the governance of those institutions, it affects economic delivery. That is very dangerous.
You're the spokesperson for the newly formed Zambia We Want.
Yes.
Tell us more about this movement or this political party. What is the reason you formed this political party with your colleagues? How was it born, and what are the objectives that it's trying to achieve?
Well, we looked at the 60 years of Zambia and asked the same questions we're discussing here. Is this the Zambia we want? And in these discussions, all of us from various political parties, we came to the conclusion that this is not the Zambia we want. That, in fact, in consultation with a broader group of people, we came to the conclusion that even the majority of Zambians believe that this is not the Zambia we want. So we asked the question, what sort of Zambia do we want? Hence the name, the Zambia we want. And we came up with a number of key pillars which we thought we have observed over the last 60 years that have created rigidities in us delivering on the economic promise. The first one we came up with was that if we looked at UNIP, we looked at MMD, we looked at the PF and so on, and then we looked at all the other opposition political parties that are there with their president, we found that one of the biggest problems we have in this country is that we don't promote a type of leadership which requires collective responsibility from a group. that we tend to promote a leadership which promotes one individual as either the king or the messiah or a cult leader. That is what our conclusion was. So what we wanted to do is create an organization which will not be dependent on a messiah, because there's only one messiah, it's Jesus. All of us knew before Jesus. But apart from Jesus, there's no other messiah. We don't believe that there should be a pharaoh or a czar or whatever. We don't believe all of those things are the thing. So we have created a structure where we have identified talent from all over the country, come and put together, and we are looking to create a leadership where it is a leadership of peers, so that we conform to the natural rule of democracy. So for example, in the United States now, just now, Barack Obama is probably the most popular leader of the Democratic Party. But he's had his 2 years. And it is no longer about him. There was Biden and there is now Kamala Harris. And all of those people get to support the new candidate because there's a recognition that Barack Obama is not the Messiah. Here in Botswana, we've just had an election, and today we are told that the ruling party has lost. Ian Kama took a position not to support himself because he thinks that he's the Wamyaya. He took a position to support somebody else. So we want to get away from this occultish leadership. We want to get away from a messianic leadership. We want to get a leadership from Mfumu as the leader of a political party. The leader of a political party should be the first among equals. That all of us should not be afraid to deal with that person, to disagree with that person, and once we put him in the office, he must abide by the rules and regulations set by all of you. So that's the first thing we've recognized in the Zambia we want. We don't want a king. Okay? We will elect, when we are ready to elect, we will elect a person that all of us have agreed that this is the best person for this particular time. And we will give him legitimacy, he will not select himself. Which is opposed to many of the political parties now in Zambia, where Muhabi Lungu thinks that no, nina kazina kadodoko, kweni kalikwela ko pachoko, I've got a name, or that Panyake have made a little bit of money. Therefore, let me go to the registrar of society, register a name, make myself president, and then start asking people to come and follow me. No, I need you, him, others in a group to say, no, I think that you, Mr. Lungu, may be the leader. I can't make myself lead, you know. So many of the political parties, that is how they're behaving. We think that is wrong. So that is one. Secondly, we believe that even if you identify a group of leaders who are peers, that you have to operate within an environment where the rules apply to every one of you. So a political party must be institutionalized. It should not be ad hoc. And if a political party is institutionalized within its constitution, then you avoid these situations of people quarreling in UNIP, people quarreling in the PF, because the rules are not clear. Okay? And because all of you are not bound by the rules, only some people are. So we have taken an enormous amount of time to try and frame a constitution which is very strong and has got within its constitution rules of adjudication before you even go to the court process. We thought that that is very important. Thirdly, we were looking for a political party which will have as its core basis ideas of development, not just to remove the people that are there. Because most political parties say, no, we will remove. Let's all come up with an alliance and we must remove whoever is in government now. If you ask them, okay, if you remove whoever in government, who do you replace him with? What policies do you replace? You don't want to say. You're not clear. So can we have clear ideas of what we're going to implement on day one? And those ideas should be as realistic as possible. Not to say that there will be heaven on earth after 90 days. Or there will be heaven in less like 16 hours. No. So those are some of the issues that we recognize. And we are trying to create an organization from scratch, which all of the constituent members of the party will be part of the decision-making process of the political party, and not one.
How is the structure like? For Zambia one. So far, because of that recognition, it's a very good question you ask. We have demarcated responsibility between the head of the party and the presidential candidate. So for us in the Zambia we want, for example, the head of the party is not the president or the presidential candidate. The head of the party is the chairman of the party, who is not allowed to seek a presidential nomination.
so that the party could be run differently from the presidential candidate. The hope is that, should we be given an opportunity to form government, that the presidency will be superintended over by the rules and regulations of the party. And if we feel that the presidency is going outside the armpit of what the party wants to deliver, that president can be recalled, the way it is done in South Africa. Okay? Again, all of this philosophy is because we think that we should get away from one person having absolute power. Okay? So that is one of the structures. That is one of the structures. The other structure of the party is that we've said that no one will appoint anyone. You hear in other parties, and I'm sure you will recall that you can even say there are some parties where the president is appointing the vice president, the secretary general, all the members of the National Executive Committee. We've said no, that is not right. Again, because you're reverting back to the issue of a party being owned by the leader of the party. We said all positions within the new party, the Zambia we want, will be elective. Okay? So, I am being called interim chairman for publicity, because for publicity and information, because I've not been elected by anyone. The president that is there now is called interim president. The chairman of the party is being called interim chairman. Why? Because we want to open up this organization to as many people as possible, and to be part of it. And then when we find the resources and when we have mobilized enough, we will then go to a congress where everyone will be what? Will be elected by its members. And once you've been elected by a member, the president cannot decide that I'm going to remove you as national secretary or secretary general. The way Nevers was removing myself, Mwansambula Kulima, Simbao, just remove, elective position. So then it becomes your party. So we said we don't want anyone. Let's have rules where people are elected properly, okay? And there is no kingpin. So that is another structure of the political party that we've created. All of this is to ensure that the party is as democratically enshrined and instituted as possible.
When are we seeing you, as Zambia Want, launching your manifesto?
We think we should be able to do it within the next 2 to 3 weeks. We are launching both the manifesto as well as the constitution. We want to make the constitution also plainly available to people. And we want people to come and judge us as to the extent of how we are behaving, okay, as a political party in accordance to the constitution of the party. Are we breaching our constitution? Okay, so within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'm pretty sure we've already finished the 2 documents. We're just doing now the finalization, because as I said, this is a consultative process. No single individual is going to pass a constitution or the manifesto. All of us, and there are many of us, people who have had experience in government, who've been ministers, who've been technocrats and so on, we are taking the collective win, and so within 2 to 3 weeks, I'm sure that we'll be ready.
In your preamble, you mentioned that we've already contracted debt about 6 billion.
Yeah.
In 3 years of the UPN
government, yes.
We're a country endowed with mineral resources.
Yeah.
In other words, we can say Zambia is rich.
It's rich by endowment, yes.
Where do you think we go wrong in the mining sector? And how is Zambia Want trying to manage this situation?
Yeah. Well, our philosophy so far, this is already in the manifesto, but I think I can share. Clearly, we believe that there should be significant participation of Zambians and local people as shareholders in the mining sector. As the situation is now, Zambians have got an insignificant share of the resources in the mining sector. So the productive capacity of the country within the mining sector, we as Zambians hold in some of these as less as 10%, and in some cases we don't even know. As you know, when the resuscitation of both KCM and Mopani were being done early this year, we as the Zambian people were not privy to the agreements that were made. There was a call that those documentation should have been taken to Parliament as by law. Okay, that when you are privatizing, when you are having any form of changes in shareholdings, that it must go to Parliament. None of that was done. When we said to the government that this is in breach of the law, they said, no, we are not privatizing. So we don't know what is going on in terms of, we are reliably informed that we have almost nothing there, that it is foreign ownership. We are not against foreign ownership, but we think that we should have a significant stake in the mining sector. One of the reasons we fought independence, because we're discussing independence, was we were saying that we were tired of being the hewers of wood. We were tired of producing raw material and being the gardeners and just whatever. We wanted to have a stake. And when we gained independence, the idea was to Zambianize. And at one point, we owned significant shares in the mining sector. Now, in 1991, when we said, okay, that model didn't work very well, the hope by many of us in Zambia was that there would be a process of privatization away from the state to Zambians. Okay? And that even though we would be able to relinquish a state ownership, that ownership would then be taken over by Zambians. But the manner in which it was done, we flipped it completely. In a position where government had maybe 51 plus, or sometimes 60%, and foreign capital had the balance, we turned it around completely, in which we now came from, say, 51, 55% to 10 to 15%, and the rest of it with foreign. We believe that that was wrongly done in 1991, and that we have basically changed the structure of the mining sector the same, and have even made it worse, because the current government seems to be completely and totally in love with foreign capital at the expense, and their excuse is that because we don't have enough money. So, to answer your question, we believe that we have to shift back to a situation where Zambians own a significant portion of the mining sector. Maybe 45, maybe 50, maybe even 50 plus one should be in Zambian hands, working together with foreign capital. And then we create a situation where there is training, as much as it was like in the 80s, where Zambians are competent to run this industry. So our policy would be geared towards creating greater participation by Zambians. That's one. And our manifesto is very clear on this one. Secondly, we also believe that one of the reasons we borrow and we're always in debt is because we don't generate enough revenues and tax revenue from the primary source of productivity in our country, being mining. So we have a lot of concessions to foreign capital. We have, for example, if you recall, the mineral royalties tax was 6%. This government came and dropped it to 3%. Okay? Then there are a lot of other tax incentives. As a result, we can't raise sufficient domestic revenue. We have said that we will restructure the fiscal policy of this government of the economic governance, so that we are able to collect more money from the mining sector, not to the extent of choking it and killing it, but we believe that there is sufficient room for us to collect a greater degree of resources from the mining sector and other sectors, still leave them with enough capital for them to operate and to make profit, but that if we have greater resources, we will have no compaction or compulsion to be able to borrow more and extend. So those are the two pillars of our mining sector. One, greater ownership of Zambia, a restructuring of the fiscal policy in order to get more revenue.
The energy sector.
Yeah.
The UPND is saying the problems we have today of these power blackouts, it's because the successive government did not invest much in the energy sector.
Yeah.
You were near the corridors of power for the past 20, 30 years. Do you subscribe to this? Where do you think we went wrong as a country for us to be faced with this challenge now?
Yeah, I think that, to be very honest, there is a little bit of truth in that. Okay, when I was director of privatization and foreign directing and foreign investment at Zambia Development Agency, I was one of those who undertook a lot of trips to the US, to Europe, to China, India, and so on, with proposals relating to the energy sector in Zambia. So, for example, the Mamba collieries energy that is being produced, the UPND have created an impression that they're the one who created, which is not true. I was responsible myself with my team and others to get that company to come and convert Mamba collieries into that energy. And even the long-term planning of additions to it, which the UPND are trying to claim is there, it's not true. It was always part of the drawing board that they would always upscale from about 300 megawatts of power to about 600, maybe even to 1,000. So that was part of the planning of both the MMD and also the PF pushed it, okay? So it is not entirely true that other successive governments did not look at creating the Kafue Lower Gorge. Again, I was working on that, and I went all over the country try and find equity partners for that project, and many other successive governments have been able to do that. Now, we have not been as aggressive as we should have been in terms of expanding our energy portfolio. First of all, within the hydro sector itself, there are many other places in which we can actually generate even more power by hydro, but also diversifying away from hydro into other areas. The plans were there. They've been there, in fact, as far back as you need. The problem with us is that we are very slow on implementation. And one of the reasons why we're very slow in implementation is because of the governance issues which I've just highlighted. So, for example, it is possible maybe to have had the Kafue Gorge Lower put on stream much earlier, but because of corruption, people wanted to take kickback. Instead of the project running smoothly and allowing it to start early, it maybe takes another 10 years because people want cuts out of it. That's the governance issue. That is why corruption is such a bad thing, and no one should ever justify that. Oh no, don't speak evil of corruption because it may look like you're criticizing a particular party. No, we should not be afraid of doing so. Corruption is very divisive and it takes away. So that part of it is correct, that I think that while plans were there, we as a people have not been able to implement them quick enough. But the issue with the UPND is not that the implementation process itself has been slow, or that there have been inability to be able to quickly recover when there are difficulties. The issue with the UPND is that they said that the reasons why there was load shedding was because of the incompetence of the PF. That's what they said. And they said that once they get into power within a very brief period of time, they will resolve the issue of load shedding, regardless of what they were going to find. In fact, 8 months after the UPND got into power, the president actually announced that there was no load shedding. I remember looking at the interview with journalists in which he was asking journalists, are you being load shedded? Are you being load shedded? The journalists were finding it difficult to answer. He then declared that after 8 months, I've resolved load shedding. That's what the president said. Now, a few months after that, we have the worst load shedding in the history of this country. Today, I received power at my house where I stay after 5 days with no power. And I'm not exaggerating. Power went, I think, midnight on Sunday, and we've had no power until 21 hours yesterday. That's when it came back. We had no power, nothing, everything ground to hold, no water, and so on. Now, the presidents and the UPND say it is because of the drought. Okay? It is because of the historical nature. Yes, we agree, there is a bit of the historical nature. There is a bit of
which they refused.
Which they refused themselves, because they were saying to other people, they completely, they said, no, it's just incompetence. Me, when I come back, I'll resolve it. The issue of the historical issue, they refused. The drought issue, they refused. Come 8 months later, they said, we've resolved it. So if you resolve it, why are we having 4 or 5 days without power? Why are we having 4 or 5 days without power? Even I know there in Nundazi, in Mansa, in Ichoma, in Livingstone, the issue is the same. You said that you are the greatest manager that has ever lived in Zambia, and you declared that it had finished. Now you are saying, no, it's biblical. That the drought is biblical. When your colleagues were saying that, it was not biblical. It was incompetence. So you have to accept that even you are incompetent.
Do you politicians take line or promising people things which you can't do as normal as long as you get into power?
Well, I think most politicians now in Zambia, they take it as normal. Not everyone. I certainly don't take it as normal. For me, I can even challenge you, Mr. Banda. As I've said, I have been in the public service and my life has basically been very open for the last 30 years. I challenge anyone to go back 30 years and come up with me where, for me, I took one position about something important, and you can find me saying a different position about it. I challenge anyone to do it. Me, I try to always try to, and I refuse to say that I'm the only one. And you heard me say this. I don't think that I'm the only one who tries to be honest. I think that there are thousands and thousands of politicians who try. The problem in our country is that many of us, especially our followers, when we have made an undertaking and we have failed to fulfill that undertaking, our followers begin to create a narrative with the general public to say, no, it's okay because politicians do that. Now, if we are going to say it's okay for us politicians to lie, then how are we going to develop our country? Because it means that we are going to promote that every politician, in order to win, must lie. So I know politicians who are invited to church functions, for example, as guests of honors for fundraising, and I will go there, and when people are saying pledges, I'll even pledge 100,000. What? I'll pledge. Oh, everyone claps. Then now, when it's time for them to collect, I start now switching off the phone, running around, getting it. I know many politicians that do that. But because the general public has come to view it as okay, we continue to do it. I suggest that if we have to stop this behavior by politicians, the voters must never give us any room to slack. If I said I was going to bring down the cost and the standard of living within 3 months, and 3 years later, and by the time the elections are there, the voters must not allow to accept any excuse. They must say, you said this, it is now 5 years, you have failed, please get out. That's the only way you will be able to attract politicians who mean what they say. If we are going to continue to create excuses for them, we will get the dirtiest, the biggest liars, the biggest con artists to be politicians. And the decent people will run away because they don't have the capacity to tell lies, or to bribe the voters and run away. That is our biggest problem. And I only think that it is a real big problem. So that's why we in the Zambia we want to have said, we will try to be as honest as possible to the people who we talk to. If we can't do it, we must say that this cannot be done in 2 months. It cannot be done in 1 year. This may take 3 years. This other issue will take 4 years. That other issue will take 10 years. We have to be honest to our people about what it is and engage the people to be part of the process of reform.
In case you've just joined us, this is Nchezgo program right here on Canadian 97.7 FM. This one is coming to you live from Zambia's capital, Lusaka, and we are hosting Mr. Muhabi Lungu, who is interim chairperson for information and publicity in the Zambia We Want. We can also call him the spokesperson of this particular political party, which has come on the scene a few months ago. Mr. Lungu, going forward, as Zambia We Want, agriculture, it is one of the backbone of Zambia's economy, and people are being advised to diversify from depending on mining to agriculture now. How do you intend to tackle the agricultural sector with what is going on around right now?
Yes. We again, this is already in the manifesto. We think that there has been a letdown by successive governments in ensuring that we transform the rural areas where majority of agriculturalists live. So that if you visit Lundazi today, and you visited Lundazi 20 years ago, because we're on Canere here, you will find that the basic structure of the way people are doing agriculture 20 years later is exactly the same as it was being done 20 years ago. We think that that is a failure of leadership overall. You find a situation where if there is only, for example, says per hectare, you are maybe able to produce only 2 tons, as opposed to some people who maybe are able to produce 10 tons. You find that people continue producing just 2 tons perpetually. Clearly, there is a problem of finding mechanism in which it will make it better. You will find that if the government is providing FISU, instead of them providing FISU maybe for 5 years and after that people graduate, because now they're able to produce so much more, that the FISU production is perpetually for maybe 15 years. Now, Not that we're saying we're going to withdraw fiscal, but there has to be a mechanism by which the agriculture sector thrives and is able to outgrow itself and become sustainable. So what we have undertook in the Zambia we want is that we will get everybody involved for us to see how well, whether we achieved areas where we were able to per capita produce more than one that we're producing now. So we have found that when there was NAMBOD, when there was ECU, for example, when there was cooperative federations, the tonnage per capita was actually higher than it is today. And so we want to go back to the situation where we try and encourage an agricultural marketing board which operates much similar to the way it used to operate under the original NAMBOD, rather than having a food reserve agency. Okay? Which is basically is just food reserve agency. It is not one which provides not only seedlings but affordable credit, which can be paid back over a long period of time. So we want to go back to federations, to cooperative unions, where there is a greater assistance from government, not only in terms of giving FSP, but even extension services, much like it was done before, and having depots everywhere, the way it was being done in the 70s and 80s. We think that that is a better way of agriculture, but to transform it so that year on year there is an actual improvement, and you have a monitoring and evaluation capacity which shows you that there's actually growth rather than decline. Okay? We also believe that the Zambia National Service should be used as a basis of training for people within the agriculture sector. We want to transform it from where it is today and how it's doing it today, where it is just the army doing it, but that there is a greater degree of contact with the actual farmers with the Zambia National Service to shift it into something that is a productive center and have outgrower schemes even within the setup of the Zambia National Service. Those are some of the proposals within our manifesto to be able to transform the agriculture sector. In doing so, we want to be able to also not only be dependent on raw products, but we want to see whether we can again go back to the original policies where we add value, okay? That whether we can have smaller units even within the rural areas themselves to turn sunflower into cooking oil as cooperatives, federations, okay? Where we are pulling national resources within the local community by everyone that is there. Whether we can turn again groundnuts into value additions in the local areas and then engage those that are producing this with the markets within the region, whether it's Tanzania, the Congo, and so on, again facilitated by the good governance of the government.
Alliances. We've seen a number of alliances coming on board. We just saw the MOU, which we've already spoken about.
Yes.
Dr. Nevas Mumba with the UPND. We have Tonse Alliance. We have UCA. Zambia we want. Are you joining any of these pacts ahead of the 2026 general elections?
Well, obviously, we would, because we have very strong beliefs, as is indicated by our manifesto, and because we also have very strong beliefs as is indicated in our constitution, the opportunity we would like is to be able to go it alone, but we're not unrealistic. We believe that if there is an opportunity for all of us to come together and form an alliance, that perhaps we can give it a chance. However, there are certain things of which we object to, okay? And number one is that we object to having an alliance solely for the purpose of removing the current government without any other plan. So, in addition to trying to defeat the current government because they have failed, we think that the important way should be what sort of programs are we going to put as an alliance. Those have to be made clear. And there are a number of core values which all of us have to agree to. For example, we must agree that we are not going to support a Messiah. Okay? That should remain to our Lord and Savior. We all have to agree that all of us have to have zero tolerance to corruption. No justification for corruption. we all have to agree that when we come to the table to discuss, okay, we must come to the table openly and honestly about what the objectives are. No one should come to the table with hidden agendas. Okay? We must have noble agendas as to what we want to achieve. So for us, we are open to it, but we think that there is a lot more that goes on to creating an alliance for just purposes of removing. That is right.
So you're open to...
We are open, but as I said, there has to be something more than just removal. There has to be something more. The fundamental issue should be, what are we going to be able to do for the people of Zambia? Are we going there to promote personal political patronage for us politicians alone? We don't want to do that. We don't want to get involved in a situation where it is okay for us politicians to keep on duping the people perpetually just because we want to get into power.
Infrastructure development. We've seen the New Dawn has adopted the private-public partnership.
Yeah.
The Ndola Lusaka Geo Carriageway is being worked on under PPP.
Yes.
And one of the conditions are that the company that is doing that road will get toll fees for the next 25 years.
Yeah.
And the toll gates have already been handed over to the concessionaire.
Yes.
Are you also going to adopt that kind of doing the infrastructure development?
No, we are not. Well, you heard me earlier, where I was saying that one of the most important linchpins of our economic policy is that Zambians must have a significant share in the productive capacity of our own country, so that the economy must be as much as possible internalized within Zambianization. If we have the resources to do a road within Zambia itself, we should try as much as possible to ensure that the major participants are Zambians. So in this particular case in which you are mentioning about this Ndola dual carriageway, almost everything, including the money, comes from Zambia. Yet the concessionaire and those people are doing it have been given outside on the basis of resources which are supposed to be. Do we know how to do roads? Sure, we know how to do roads. It's just about the quality control. Why should you give it externally? And why should you say the private sector that is going to do this is only the one that is from outside the country? We would not have followed that person. The money is coming from here. We should have done it locally, the way it was being done earlier. Of course, you have to take care of the possible corruption that comes with us doing things on our own, obviously. But the short answer is that we would not do it that way. Okay, we would ensure that if the capacities exist and the resources are coming from the country, that the structure of both the negotiation as well as the structure of ensuring that the road is done will be done by Zambians. 2
days ago, you spoke about the danger of abusing the police,
yes,
and the judicial system.
That's right.
You are saying it's a danger to this nation.
Yes, it is.
What have you observed?
We have observed that the situation is getting progressively worse. You may recall, Mr. Banda, that I have been to jail maybe 3 times. Once I was in jail for Black Mamba, and I was charged for treason and murder, which of course I didn't do. I was arrested also. An accusation of theft of motor vehicle over some domestic issue within MMD. I think I've been arrested 3 or 4 times. Now, the way I was treated during all those arrests was quite humane. Okay, even under the charge of murder and treason, we won the case, of course. But the way people are being treated now for the things they say is a lot worse than some of us who have been in politics were a long time. Yet we are 30 years after we moved to a political system. How can you have a situation where someone says something that is not sedition, and the police just dream that we're going to charge this person with sedition so that he can just stay in the chooks for 10 days? That is abuse of police power. How can a journalist who wrote an article exercising his rights be arrested, and for 2 weeks you just keep him in jail? You You just keep him in jail. So we see that maybe it's revenge, because maybe that is how he feel he was treated, or they feel that they were treated. But you don't govern and you don't use the police because you want revenge. That's not what the police are for. Okay? The judicial system, when we were arrested, when I was arrested for Black Mamba, we appeared in court within 48 hours. We were taken to court because it is my right for me to be heard and apply for habeas corpus. Mr. Zimba, I understand, and this is what has just been said, that it looked like there was fear from the judicial system to actually hear the case of habeas corpus or bail, because they thought the complainants, from what we are told, were said to be complainants which are very high ranking at State House. So, why should the judicial system be afraid? Because just 2 weeks ago, 3 constitutional judges were removed for making a decision, apparently, on a case which had to do with an individual who later became president. So, if you are going to remove 3 judges of the Constitutional Court, who is a magistrate? Who is a High Court judge? If you can remove judges, so obviously you've created fear in the judicial system. So if a court, I have heard just within this period, since the judges have been, those 3 judges were removed, of judges recusing themselves to hear a matter which involved a government official or whatever. So you've created fear in the judicial system. That is why I was saying, you cannot have a situation where the police abuse their authority, where the judges are maybe even now frightened to hear a case which has to do with State House. It means that you have destroyed the whole system. Am I going to be fair? If for example, someone from State House today decides that Muhabi Lungu speaks too much, what he said there, we are going to have him arrested, you think that I will have equal hearing within the judicial system? I may not. And you don't govern a country like that. We're supposed to be getting better. We're not supposed to be getting worse. I do recall that under the one-party state, when we had a state of emergency, okay, the police were afraid to do some of these issues. The police were actually afraid. When my father-in-law, Mr. Edward Jack Shamwana, was arrested, he used to take the UNIP government to court. And General Mianda, if you recall, was in that coup plot, won a case against the state. Mr. Msakanya, who was part of it, won a case against the state. Even in a one-party state, there were judges who were bold enough to rule against the almighty UNIP. Today, 34 years, 35 years after we removed what we call a dictatorship, which had a one-party state operating, it appears that the police are all too prepared to listen to the executive and do their bidding. It looks like it's all too easy for the judiciary to run out. We have an MP right now who is on the run. An MP, a member of parliament for Petauke. Why? Because in as far as we all know, he was kidnapped. When he said he was kidnapped by so and so and so on, the president says that man is a thug. Instead of us executing the matters to do with his kidnapping, he was made the issue and the thug, and he was arrested. And an old case, which apparently had been dealt with many years earlier, was resurrected. Why? Because the president was able to say that this man is a thug. And immediately he said that the following day the police did what? They went and arrested him. Now, can you see that I'm not being unfair to the UPN government? This is the sequence of how things have been happening in this country. It appears that the small man now has no access to justice. Has no access to justice. And the whole fundamental basis upon which there is supposed to be a system of rules and regulations that everyone must feel that I've got an equal chance at fair representation and the right to be heard by the judicial system, and that I can win. But not the way it is now. Not the way it is now. We have deteriorated so badly, and the person who was themselves a victim of these things seems not to care, as long as he can get away with it.
How can we correct this situation? How can we reclaim the rule of law that was established at independence, or when the multi-party system came into Zambia?
We
What do you think should be done?
That is why I said earlier on that we in Zambia, we feel that the constitution has to be redone. Okay? And we think that the constitution has to be redone not parallel to an electoral cycle. Okay? So, if for example we all agree, all of us in the opposition and the government, which the government also agreed because they had undertaken before they went to the government that they were going to do this, there was going to be a constitutional review. Okay? They got into government and they forgot about it. Now, we should, if we agree, for example, and say the constitution process will start maybe this year or maybe in 2025, we must make sure that it finishes not in an electoral cycle year. Maybe we can finish it around 2027, 2028. That is one of the reasons we think that there should be a change of government. That this government, which promised to amend the constitution, has failed. They only have 18 months remaining. They obviously cannot do it with any ulterior motives apart from trying to change the constitution so that he can have 8 years. This is what he said, there's a lacuna that he can have 8 years. So we mistrust him, he can't do it. We have to get another group of people to do it, but those people, there has to be a commitment. That is why even when we say we consider the possibility of alliances, for us as the Zambia we want, one of the issues that we will present, that if we are all going to be an alliance, all of us have to sign a social contract and publicly state that we want the constitution reviewed so that there is an equitable balance of power. The president doesn't have the sort of power to start instructing people and the dark of night, go and arrest that one. Or people at State House have got the capacity to say, no, me, I'm a complaining, and then the police are scared to do anything. So definitely we need to change. I think that we need to make the institutions of governance stronger, where there is no abuse from any single individual within the system, and that there is maybe a very strong office of ombudsman or public protector to ensure that wherever there is abuse, there are mechanisms to stop that abuse, no matter who is doing the abuse. So that is one way. But it's not only constitution. It also has to do with creating an environment by which all of us understand that if the rules are not operating the way they are supposed to do, none of us are safe. Okay? That even the NGOs, that the civic society, that even the political parties. My father used to say, charity begins at home. If you do not have any adherence to constitutional norms in your own political party, if you are given power, don't think that a person will behave any better with state power. So some of the people that we should be considering to put in power as a replacement for the UPND should be political parties that have demonstrated the capacity to follow their own rules and regulations within their own political party. Because if they can't, it means that they will not behave any different when they are given power. We in the Zambian, are determined to ensure that we will follow our own rules. That's why I have said that we will publish it, and people can be able to say, okay, these people have done what they've said or not, and therefore they are decent people who can be trusted with power.
Okay. As we come to the end of this program, Mr. Lungu, what are your concluding remarks?
Yeah. My concluding remarks are similar to the statement that I issued the other day, when the same thing. One of the issues that I pointed out was that the society seems to be so polarized in our country right now that we have lost the capacity to judge between what is right and what is wrong. We have lost the capacity to judge between what is fair and unfair. We have lost the capacity to determine what is the truth and what is a lie. Now, all of us now have been put in this position that if you are in the opposition, you must always support the opposition position, even if what they're doing is wrong or what they're saying is a lie. That if you are in the government, even if you can clearly see that the government is doing something is wrong, you are compelled to start supporting a nonsensical behavior by the government. You know, I would like to appeal to the people of Zambia and myself that let us get back to the true Christian values for which we say we are Christians. That if something is a lie, we must call it out as a lie. If something is truthful, we must call it out as being truthful. We should not shy away and take position on the basis of who we support or who likes us. It is a great danger to do that. And so for me, I think that we have to be honest about this thing. Okay, we have to be honest to each other, and we have to try and dial back this level of polarity. Lastly, I think that the greatest danger to our country as of today, in my view, is the polarity in terms of ethnicity. The current government wants to deny that it is not there. Anyone who does not feel included by the system knows that it is there. And our country is like a big steam train that has lost brakes and it is now approaching a cliff. And the rest of us are pretending as if we got brakes and there is no cliff ahead of us. Okay? We have to realize that we are in danger from the polarity in terms of just ideology, from the polarity of ethnicity, from the fact that our country continues to shrink rather than grow, from the fact that our debt continues to grow rather than shrink, So we have got major problems. The problems of our country are complex, and no single individual right now has got the capacity to resolve this thing by themselves.
Mr. Lungu, thank you so much for...
I'm very grateful.
Tamonga.
Naonga.
Sure.
Naonga.
We are looking forward to having many of such interactions here on Canadian 97.7 FM.
I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much to our viewers and listeners who have been with us for the past 1 hour. This has been Nchezgo program right here on Canadian 97.7 FM. And today we are featuring Mr. Muhabi Lungu, who is the interim chairperson for publicity and information in the Zambia We Want political party. I've been your presenter, Banda Edward. Stephen Koma was behind the camera for those of you who are watching us on our Facebook page and YouTube. John Zayawan Seteka is my producer. Continue listening to Canadian 97.7 FM for these exciting shows. For now, it's bye-bye.